In this lecture, we're going to dive into the concept of type conversion and casting in Python. Understanding how and when to convert data types is crucial for writing robust and error-free code. We'll explore both implicit and explicit type conversion, providing plenty of examples to illustrate these concepts. Let's start with implicit type conversion. This occurs when Python automatically converts one data type to another without any explicit instruction from the programmer. It's usually done to prevent data loss in arithmetic operations. For instance, if you add an integer and a float, Python will implicitly convert the integer to a float to ensure the result is accurate. Let's see this in an example. In VS Code, I create a new file and name it as implicittypeconversion.py. In this example, numInt is an integer and numFloat is a float. When we add them together, Python converts numInt to a float, yielding a float result. Let's print the result as well as its type. I run the script by typing python implicittypeconversion.py in the terminal. The output reveals that the type of the result is float. This automatic conversion helps in maintaining the precision of the result without requiring any additional effort from our side. Now let's move on to explicit type conversion, also known as casting. This is when we manually convert one data type to another using built-in functions like int, float, str, and so on. Explicit conversion is essential when we need to control the data type conversion process precisely. Let's create a new file for our explicit type conversion example. In this example, we have a string representing a number, and we want to perform arithmetic operations on it. We can convert this string to an integer explicitly using int function. Similarly, we could explicitly convert it to a float using float function. Let's reflect the results and run the script. The output illustrates an integer and a float. Explicit conversion is also handy when dealing with user input. For example, I ask the user to enter a number, and I store it in a variable. Since input from users is typically read as a string, we often need to convert it to the appropriate type for processing. I convert it to an integer explicitly. Then I can safely do operations with it. I execute the script and enter 10. Therefore, the output will be 10 plus 5, 15. So, here we explicitly convert the string input to an integer before performing the addition. Python provides several built-in functions for explicit type conversion. Let's look at a few common ones. Int converts a value to an integer. Float converts a value to a float. Str function converts a value to a string. And bool function converts a value to a boolean. Let's see some examples demonstrating the use of these functions. I create a new file to practice these functions. Assume I have a float number. I explicitly convert it to an integer using the int function. Note that I will lose the decimal part of my data. I print the converted data, and I execute the program. We see only the whole part, and the decimal part is gone. Now let's convert an integer to a string. I define an integer number. And I convert it to a string using the str function. Then I print it together with its type. And I run the script. Here is my string and its type. Similarly, we can use the float function to convert our data to a float number. For example, I define a string variable like this, and I convert it to a float number and print the result. Then I run the program in the terminal, and here is my float number. Finally, we have the bool function to convert any data to its equivalent Boolean value. The Boolean value of 0 or an empty string is false. Here are the results. And the Boolean value of any non-zero number as well as any non-empty string is true. As you see in the printed results. Each of these conversions plays a critical role in ensuring our data is in the correct format for various operations. So in this lecture, we covered the essentials of type conversion and casting in Python. We discussed how implicit type conversion works seamlessly to maintain precision in operations. We also explored explicit type conversion using functions like int, float, str, and bool, providing several examples to solidify your understanding. Mastering these conversions will make you a more effective and efficient Python programmer.